In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 ways that parents make baseball less fun for their kids and why your kids might eventually quit because of it. So look, I'm not here to berate you. I do want to just highlight these things because if you're an introspective parent and you want to do better for your kid, so look, I'm not here to berate you and bully you into being a better parent, but I do want to give you some ideas and have you hopefully think a little bit harder and look in the mirror and say, yeah, maybe I do some of that stuff and maybe I should just like cool off a little bit, and that'll make my kid a little happier and stay in their sport a little longer, and everyone will be a little more relaxed as they get out here on the field and play their games. So number 1 is coaching from the bleachers. I know you get real riled up and you want to like yell stuff out to your kid, but it does not help. You do not need to tell them, only swing at strikes, throw strikes, keep your eye on the ball. Like, you don't need to yell that stuff. You absolutely can and should be a cheerleader for your kid, but that is the only role. When you see these parents who are coaching their kids, like, hey, get back in there, like, and the kid takes a swing and then they look back at their dad, they take a swing, they look back at their mom. That is a really unhealthy relationship, and it's bad for the kid. They're constantly like, did I make my dad happy? Did I make my mom happy on that swing? It is a really bad place to be. If you want to cheer and be a wild cheerleader for your kid, that's wonderful. If you want to just, sit there and be relaxed and just clap and just be a kind of a part of the scenery, that's okay too. Just don't be coaching in the bleachers because it does not help your kid. It will not help them succeed more or fail less. It will just make them more nervous, more anxious, and just hate being out on the field more because it's not about them anymore. It's about pleasing you, and that's not what sports should be like. Too many games. And look, I felt this recently. I play a lot of slow pitch softball. I teach slow pitch softball on my softball channel now, and I'm a good player, so I get asked to go on a lot of teams. I mean, subbing. In the spring, I was playing up to 8 games a week, and I was like, bro, I need to not play any more softball right now. When I was a kid, we didn't play enough games in our schedule for me to feel that way. Like, I was always wanting to play more, and so I was always practicing in my backyard, but the schedules were not crazy like they are with kids now. And now, when they're traveling, they're in the car for 6 hours, and they play 5 games on the weekend. Then they have all their academy stuff during the week and the midweek game and whatever. It is a very full-time job. And if you haven't burned yourself out in a physical activity lately, like I just recently had with slow pitch softball, where I was like, I need time away from this. You should just understand that these schedules can really wear your kids down, and they might not communicate it until all of a sudden they're like, hey, I don't want to play anymore. I'm not signing up next season. And then you're going to look back and you say, what was all this for? And why did I push so hard? If I just chilled out and let them have a more balanced, life schedule as a kid, they'd still be playing. They'd still be having fun. There is a point for everyone where, think of it as 2 bars. The left bar is how much fun they have, and 2 is how much they have to do to get that fun. And so when they're young, all they have to do is drive 10 minutes down to the local park to play rec ball. It's a very low commitment, and they really like baseball, so they have a lot of fun. But as they have to drive farther and farther, and there's more practices, and they have some coaches they don't really like, it starts to even out. Now if it's like, I hate my coach, I hate being in the car so much, I hate playing 8 games a week, I don't have enough fun to justify how hard this feels and how much of a job this feels like. So make sure as a parent you're really considering how big of a workload they have, and if they're really choosing this workload, or if you've chosen this workload for them because you're afraid of FOMO and you're afraid, well, they're not going to get a college scholarship, or if they don't play on this high level team now, they won't be on a high level team next year. And we definitely want them on a high level team 2 years from now, so they have to do it now to be on the team in 2 years. That whole circle of FOMO and achievement really just screws things up, where it's like, all right, now they're just doing way more than they wanted to, and then they quit. So be really careful with their schedule and how rigorous it is, because they got to be kids and they need to have a certain amount of unstructured time, and it has to be their choice for them to really want to keep doing it. The next reason kids quit baseball is because their parents push them too much. And here's my thing that I tell everyone. My childhood, my parents did not push me to do anything. I loved baseball. I could not get enough of it because it was what I wanted to do. When adults tell kids they need to work harder, you got to practice more. If you want to be good, you got to do this. You got to put in more time. You got to go to the cage more. You got to do this more. They just want to not do it. That's why kids want to go to video games, because when they're in the basement playing video games, there's no adults telling them how to shoot in Call of Duty or how to do whatever they do in Fortnite, right? There's no adults involved. They just get to be in the headset with their buddies. And kids want a certain amount of autonomy, and they don't want to be shoved into their hobbies, right? You as an adult, if you play pickleball or you do crafts or you go fishing, you play golf, no one bullies you into doing more golf. No one goes to your games and tells you that your tennis swing sucks and you should practice more. You're allowed to do those hobbies as poorly or as high level as you want to. But yet we think for kids, they have to learn all these lessons and they have to do all this, and it's all about achievement. And if you make it too much about achievement and they have to be good at it and they have to be disciplined, well, they're going to probably quit eventually. It's good to teach your kids discipline, but aren't they allowed to have hobbies too? Aren't they allowed to have things that are just fun because they like them, right? Kids are allowed to just like draw and like learn about dinosaurs and run around the playground. And those are just purely joyful things that pass the time. Adults have them as well, your adult hobbies. But for some reason, sometimes we put youth sports into a different bucket where if you play soccer, you've got to be good at it. If you play basketball, you've got to be great at it. It's got to be all about hard work. They will learn to work hard anyway. If they want to be good at it, they will learn those lessons. They will learn all the character skills and resilience and grit and determination from their sport. They will trickle in over time. You don't have to push it on them and throw it on them when they're young. Allow them to love it, and they will choose to do it, and they will choose to work hard at it as they get older and the competition level increases. And the last big thing that adults do that really sucks the joy out of sports for their kids is making it all about achievement. It doesn't matter if I go D1. It doesn't matter if I become a pro ball player. Look, my mom and dad, they just wanted to see me happy. I was happiest running around a baseball field. And for a long time, that meant me just like doing what I wanted, playing backyard baseball, going to games, whatever. And then later on, it meant Dan was in the weight room. Dan was running interval sprints on the local track. Dan was rehabbing from Tommy John surgery, not once, but twice. Dan was doing things to desperately stay in baseball. But at every point, my parents didn't care. They didn't brag that their kid was a D1 player. They weren't sitting at home like, I'll be a good parent if my son turns pro. I'll be the really popular mom in the book clubs if my kid's a D1 athlete. My parents never cared about that. They just wanted to see me happy. And I think a lot of parents, they are looking for signals of like, did I do a good job with my kid? Was I a good parent? Was I a good mom? Was I a good dad? And if they become a D1 swimmer or a D1 baseball player, then the answer is yes. But here's the thing, once you retire and you take the jersey off, no one cares. The only thing that people ultimately care about is how you treat them. I've had teammates that were bona fide major leaguers, and if they were jerks, and I had a couple who were horrible human beings, no one wanted to be around them, no one respected them, no one liked them, no one cared. And then I had teammates who were lower level players. I've had many coaches who were not particularly high level baseball players, and they were just wonderful people. They were huge influences on my life. The biggest thing that you need to realize as a parent is if you create a D1 player who's an awful human being, no one will care. And if you create a wonderful human being who's kind, who contributes to society, who's a high character person, who helps other people, it doesn't matter how good they are at sports. It doesn't. So you need to make sure your goals as a parent and what you're putting your self-esteem and your self-worth on is not your kid's achievement. Because you also don't control my genetics. My parents had nothing to do with, well, they did, but my parents, they didn't control whether I was a good baseball player or not. And I don't control that either. I had good genes to be a good baseball player. Thanks, mom and dad, but they didn't control that and I didn't control that either. You don't control your kid's genetics. If your kid has a chance to be a great athlete, awesome. You all won the genetic lottery. But if your kid doesn't, it doesn't make you less of a good parent either, right? Make sure you're checking in with yourself about what your motives are and whether you're putting pressure on your kid because of maybe your own self-worth issues that are being reflected in your kid's sports journey. So hopefully there was something in here for you. Again, it's always good to check in, look in the mirror, ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing when it comes to being a sports parent and how you can be a little bit better to show up for your kid. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll see you here in the next video.